There we go. Welcome to Teachers Teaching Teachers. This is show 600. We're not paying much attention to that, but beyond saying that, here at Teachers Teaching Teachers, it is January 30th. And this is kind of an old-fashioned planning for the spring, even though it's 5 degrees outside where we are, or soon will be. Probably not in New Orleans, though, right?
No, it's a nice balmy 50. So.
Okay. Nice to know. Okay.
Everyone's very cold here at 50, though.
Yeah. New Orleans can brag about the weather all at once. It's had its share. But so welcome. We're going to be talking about youth voices. I have and digital portfolios and what you're planning to do, and maybe NowComment, and we're all at very different stages in this process. Sarah Holbrook just jumped on and welcome.
I'm just sort of lurking.
Yeah, okay. Introduce yourself, though, Sarah. We'll do a quick introductions here.
I work with youth all the time, all over the world. Next week, I am in Istanbul, and I was interested in what you're doing. I am the author of 1 novel, YA, and about 20 books of poetry, both for adults and kids. And I have also 4 professional books with Heinemann and 1 with Scholastic. But I do work with kids doing performance poetry, and I am a recovering slammer.
Very cool. So welcome. I'm glad you found us. Where are you located?
Mentor, Ohio, and it's 3 below.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good to check in.
Yeah.
Parvathy, introductions?
I'm Parvathy Anantnarayan, and I teach humanities, 12th grade humanities at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts in New Orleans. And I'm a teacher.
Very cool. Amazing school, it looks like, and it's great to include you in our community. If you look at the top of the Youth Voices, you'll, with all the logos and things, your school has been added there now.
I saw that.
We're waiting to see your kids' first post, but that's where you are in the process, which is very cool. You're interested in LRNG maybe, and NowComment maybe, and so we're going to kind of figure all that out. You want to say any more?
I think mainly, I mean, starting with Youth Voices makes the most sense, and I think that was your guidance, and I'm glad for it, just to be able to kind of get students introduced to the whole getting into a community of writers process. And then LRNG interests me mainly because of its sequential kind of arrangement of the playlists, and how students can differentiate their own learning path through it in terms of pacing and what they're interested in. So yeah, I'm intrigued to hear how others are using it, with what effect, how do they like it?
Cool. Well, we're all just starting on it, and we're all rethinking as we go, but fair enough. Hi, Kiran. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kiran Chaudhuri. I teach at Harvest Collegiate High School in Manhattan. And I teach 9th and 10th grade combined classes of 2 periods each. And last semester, I taught a course called Love and Rage on James Baldwin's work. And this semester, I'm teaching a course that I call The Power of Poetry.
So did that course end before the movie, or did you guys get to the movie?
Oh, we got to the movie. We finished the book on November 30th. And then I took them to see the movie on the 3rd day that it was out.
Nice. And what about the show up on 19th Street? Did you see that show? Or there's an amazing Baldwin show there right now.
What kind of show?
It's at a gallery. I'll send the note to you. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a beautiful show. But anyway, and you're doing but you're actually here because we started planning together a poetry unit. right? Or a poetry course, not a unit.
Yeah, semester.
Semester course. So cool. Kevin?
Yes, hi. I'm Kevin Vechna. I teach 11th grade English at Pan American International High School in the Bronx. This is my 9th year teaching. Yeah, and I was introduced to Youth Voices and NowComment October, November. So this is the second time around the block, more or less.
Cool. And you did a whole unit around the arrival, right?
Yeah.
Graphic
we had an immigration unit, and we used the arrival. We do a lot of group projects. So the students took, each group took a chapter, and we did lit circles using NowComment for annotation. And then they put together like an analysis piece as a final product for Youth Voices.
And all I know so far is that you're going to move into Mouse. Is that right? Or...
Yeah, in Unit 4, our unifying topic across the content areas is propaganda. So we're gonna do some exploration of Mouse in line with a unit on propaganda and persuasion, but also touching upon like the Holocaust and World War II.
Cool. Well, welcome. And Chris Sloan. You've been around the block a few times.
Yeah. My name is Chris Sloan. I teach English and media at Judge Memorial. It's a high school in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so speaking of poetry, my students are our school, everyone has to memorize a poem this time of year. And then we participate in this thing called Poetry Out Loud, which is a national recitation competition, but we just have fun with it at the school level. So everybody is memorizing a poem, and then tomorrow all the different English classes meet in the auditorium. And so if your class is period 1 and my class is period 1, then we're all going to listen to each other do that. And then we pick the 15 finalists, and then next week we have an all-school assembly that's just poetry recitation. And then they move on to other things. So last year there was a girl who won the regional and then the state competition. Then she went to Washington, D.C. and did pretty well there. So that's kind of my poetry example. But most of the time,
she did pretty well, meaning what?
Well, she advanced to the next round.
I like how kind of casual you are, and like, yeah, we just have fun with this, but it's a competition. And we won.
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
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 Nice.
But anyway, she went to the next round at the nationals, and then so I guess you could say she was in like the top 25 or something like that, which was pretty cool because it was like there's amazing people out there, as it turns out.
Do they choose their own poems, or are the poems given to them?
No, it's sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, and it's poetryoutloud.org.
Okay.
And the poems come from that. It's a pretty exhaustive list, though. And every state actually is having competitions through February, if your kids are interested. Because, they get to go to DC for free and get a lot of swag and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
I use that in my classroom.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. And then I teach English composition to mostly seniors, most of the time.
So your new semester has begun?
Yeah, right after the New Year's we started. So okay. we're into it. Now actually my English class is reading Othello.
Oh. Okay. And what kind of writing they're going to do around that? Just to leap right in the middle of it.
Right. With all classics, what I try to have them do is find the relevance in today's world. So I would imagine you'll see some things coming from them about, well, if you know Othello, it'll be about racism, jealousy, parent-child relationships, kind of the themes that you see in the classic works. I have them try to make connections to today. With whatever we're reading. So last semester, like with 1984, we were just talking about, Kevin was just talking about mouse and propaganda. So you'll see some writing from them from last semester about those kind of issues too.
Amazing writing, actually.
Yeah, they did good stuff.
One of my favorite quotes from you this last couple of months was, "I like my kids to write things that I want to read."
Exactly. I feel like I've punished myself with enough bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm upfront with them. I tell them that's your goal. But not just me though. Like a general.
I know.
Yeah.
Or given where I get it. But the Jessica Hernandez-Speer, who I invited here again tonight, I teach a class with her in the Bronx a couple times a week at Pulse High School. And the principal has decided that the entire school is going to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and everyone's going to go see the play, which, and everyone's sort of like, why? And she wants us to read the screenplay, and it doesn't matter. But the reason the reason I quickly asked that question is that I want to see if we can do some posting on Youth Voices out of that class that isn't just responses to the literature, that, like you said, makes connections with current issues and issues in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be looking to you for that. But I don't know for sure where to go. You all have sort of really interesting things going on. What I thought to do, though, is to show a portfolio that Jessica and I, with a student, it's a very, very small one, but it'll introduce stuff. Does that sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let's see. So it'll take me a minute. Please ask questions or talk amongst yourselves as I'm going to find my screen here. But
may I say something?
Yeah, please jump in.
I do visit a lot of schools, and I get asked a lot of times, where can students showcase their work? And I would like to recommend what you're doing to other schools. And could someone send me a link?
Yeah, but absolutely. But youthvoices.live is where you want to go.
Okay. And is it something that, for instance, like if I'm in a school in Hagerstown, Maryland, or if I'm in a school in Istanbul, I could say to teachers, this is, you might explore this opportunity?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in the past, while Paul's firing up his screen, we've had teachers from Australia or, different parts of
Mexico.
Mexico for sure, yeah.
Well, in the next 2 weeks, I'm in Istanbul in Brazil and high schools, so I will pass along this opportunity for them.
Cool.
And Hagerstown, Maryland.
Cool. Okay, so this is sort of a little more presentational. Please don't. I don't have a presentation plan, so please interrupt. I'm just trying to kind of show what we're thinking, and to say that with Kiran and with Jessica, I've been rethinking how badges might work, and it's not at all about getting rid of how we've thought about it now. We have now what I would call playlists that are attached to project. Like at the end, there's a playlist badge, right? And so we've been kind of rethinking that around portfolios. So very excited about portfolios, have been for a long time. David Nikdula just published a book that I recommend, in that he sort of lays all this stuff out in great ways. I'll get back to that. But in LRNG, right, kids can create. So I'm at, where I am right now is lrng.org/o, as an organization, /youth-voices. And a portfolio that a youth just recently completed, Dust here completed it, right? so just to give some sense of what a portfolio can look like, this is a very simple one. It has one section. We're going to be talking about that, I hope, in a second here. But you'll see that he did some reflective writing here, right? Not a lot of detail, but some. If you click on the badge, you can go to, or you can see what the expectations were. You can see the playlist. You can go to the badge, and you can actually look at all of the work he submitted for that. So that's sort of what a badge looks like in a portfolio. And then what he did was he pulled out 3 pieces of work, right, that relate to this. So this is a National Writing Project piece of curriculum that, so he first, I'll quickly show you what these look like. I think I will. So I won't very quickly, but it'll come eventually. It's cold. Anyway, so what's coming up there? It's coming is a, there we go. So there are clips from the documentary American Creed, and he actually watched the whole thing too. And what we see are all of his comments on those clips, right? Don Reed's students' comments are there too. So that's one piece of evidence he pulled up. Then he says, you know, he has 3, he went to Writing Our Future American Creed and said why he liked these 3 posts, just to kind of get a sense of what's there. And then he wrote a post himself, which again will take a minute to come up. Oh, not too bad.
The posts are, did you say they're on Youth Voices?
So in this case, he did actually put it on Youth Voices too, but this playlist only directs them to post on the National Writing Project,
okay.
Writing Our Future American Creed.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where he posted that, which has, you know, the benefit of being out there with other youth around who are writing about the movie. The downside is that there's no sort of conversation or feedback possible here. But I guess in this context, I just wanted to show, oh, you'll notice also there is a brief bio, or as long as it wants to be, about him. And then he made this public, but he can use it to present to anybody in any way, right? So that's what a portfolio is. I guess what I wanted to emphasize was what I think is nice is you can see his early thoughts. You can see how he's, you know, looking at other posts and thinking about, and then you can see a little bit about what he ended up with. You can kind of look at the whole process. So there's, again, I told you I don't have a real presentation, but I wanted to mention that.
So the difference between the portfolio in terms of design and just a playlist would be that the portfolio is sequential. And
say what you mean by sequential.
In that one activity builds onto the next in some way. So I'm just trying to differentiate what a playlist does versus what a portfolio sequence of assignments does.
Yeah. So, sorry, trying to be announcing it. What was I going to look for? I'll find it here in a second. So, Kiran, do you understand that question? Do you want to?
The difference between a playlist and a portfolio. That's the question?
Yeah.
I can jump back in. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you in the spot. So one of the things that well, let's go to your work, Kiran. One of the things Kiran and I have been thinking about is how to structure her curriculum around her poetry class, right? So there are several playlists that lead kids to look at different poems and write poems in different ways. One that Kiran created herself around
George L. Lyons.
Sorry,
Where I'm from.
Where I'm from. And there are others. So one way to think about this is that youth would go in and choose several playlists that are about poetry, right? And Kiran, so one of the things that we keep central, I think, is I'm just repeating some of our conversations. So jump in. Is we want kids to post their own poems on Youth Voices and interact with each other there, right?
Yeah.
And once a week, once every other week, we're kind of thinking about that. And then say what the other. So there's that. Post on Youth Voices. Interact with other kids who are posting poetry on Youth Voices. But you had some other things you wanted them to do too. You want them to collect poems that they like.
Right. So I'm interested in like several parts. I don't know if I'll lose you if I go to this other, if I pick up.
You're going to try to share a screen? You can.
No, no. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah, we can see you. Yep.
I'm just getting that list up that I made.
Okay.
Okay. So I want them to make 6. The portfolio would have 6 parts. One, a collection of photos, a portrait of you, a photograph portrait of you, a photo of you performing in front of a crowd, a video of you performing a poem of your own or by a published author, an audio recording of you reading a poem of your own or a published author. So a still of you, your face, a still of you performing, standing and delivering, a video of you standing and delivering, an audio of you reading a poem, either of your own or by a published author, and a photo of your messiest handwritten draft. So that's one playlist. Then, or piece of the portfolio. Then another is your
section. Yep. Okay, section. Good.
Another is your author's bio, which is on the side of. Say it again.
No, go ahead.
So on the side of Dust's page, he has that about me section. So they would make that, and then I'm interested in having them include a third section would be an anthology of your favorite poems, of your favorite poets, including influencers. So including some of the poems that you used as mentor texts, poets whom you would count as an influencer. And then the fourth section would be a digital chapbook of your poems that you've written. A fifth section would be a blog of your responses to poetry and other people's responses to your responses. So your responses and then to poems and then commentary from others. And then a sixth section would be literary criticism by you. Yeah. So you are a poet, a literary critic, a son, a daughter, a nephew. You're all these things on your in your portfolio.
So I mean, we're really close to rethinking LRNG, right? As we're doing this, and let me just say, around portfolios, so that with the idea that it is not necessary to have work in a playlist or on an XP in order to put it on LRNG and then get it into a portfolio. So that kind of frees us up to go back to, or going to what Kiran just did in quite a lot of detail. And have you sent that list to me? I don't know if you have.
I got it together today. We had a delay.
Okay,
in our schools,
so again, none of this is either or. So within the section where youth are writing their own poems, they might work through a playlist about a poem, about writing the poem, right?
Yeah.
And get a project badge. But what we're trying to reconsider is maybe those 6 sections that you laid out.
Yeah.
Each of those could be a badge instead, right?
Yeah.
So that they're earning those badges slowly over time and building this digital portfolio. Really essential to Kiran and my work from years and years ago, and it's reestablished in David Nicodoulos' book, is to think about these digital portfolios as not sort of living online somewhere, but that there be a panel that looks at those with youth, right? And kind
this
of
is from the early 90s.
Right, and Kevin works in a portfolio school too, although, you know, the definition of portfolio there is not as messy as I think ours is, if I could say it that way. Do you want to respond to that? I just brought you in. But
oh yeah, absolutely. Our portfolios, the students write various like pieces. They produce various pieces of writing around. There's a personal statement. There's a literary analysis paper. There's a Spanish literary analysis. There's an economics research thing. So again, they write these essays, they do research, they're pretty extensive, and then they present them in front of a panel of staff members. They get feedback, they do revisions. And in New York, we have the Regents at the high school level, and it's several exams. So we have waivers, so we do these portfolios for everything but the algebra test and the English test.
So do they revise after the presenting in front of a panel and receiving feedback?
Yeah, there's revision that takes place. So it's a graduation requirement. There's 6 portfolios. We use the term PBAT, portfolio-based assessment. And they work with a mentor 15 Fridays out of the year on these things. They do work in their subject classes. They present, they get notes and feedback, they make revision, and then they basically have to pass the, get a high rating on the rubric to justify graduation.
You don't have badges yet.
No badges yet, but it's not a bad idea.
No. So that's sort of the world that we came from
Small progressive schools, portfolio assessment roundtables.
And I'm trying to get back into. I think we can. There's something really. So let me, Chris. Do you want to interrupt, or what are you thinking right now? Is this so different for LRNG, or let me ask that question this way. I got so excited about the freedom of, you could just put work in and then build a portfolio in LRNG, but then you might want to use a playlist to get to that work. And I was explaining that all to my wife, and she said, "You know what? I don't hear much difference there." But anyway, so that's my question. Do you hear a difference here, or
a difference between?
Like, does this? You've struggled with figuring out how LRNG fits your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does this feel like an opportunity, or do you need to hear more, or what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I start with youth voices, and so to me, like, they're creating a body of work there.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that I suppose would facilitate them, collecting stuff in a different place like LRNG, and getting some kind of outside validation if they needed it, or certification or something. Makes sense. But you know, what I like about Youth Voices is just the heart of it, which is like students writing about their inquiry and then discussing it. And I don't know, you know, so like to me, that's a difference between LRNG and Youth Voices. And in my setting, I guess, they already get a badge per se because they're in a school, and you're like, you know, you do work and you're okay in that particular setting.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've just tried to have them put a lot of energy into their Youth Voices work, and then where I went in the first semester more is to make it more transparent, their annotations of the kinds of sources that they were put into their Youth Voices posts. I thought NowComment was a nice tool to open up their thinking about the sources that they used in their writing. And
break that down a little bit, because I think that fits Kiran's section where kids are collecting poems they like. Is that, I keep saying that wrong.
Yeah, Anthology of Poems.
Anthology of Poems. And you are thinking of using NowComment for that, Kiran? Is that possible, or
not in the anthology, but I'm seeing yeah, I mean, it could be anthology that has links that you can click on, but I'm thinking more in the blog is where they will have comments. You're talking about NowComment connected. Yeah. Okay.
So the connection I was making, and maybe this doesn't work.
They're reading poems. They're selecting poems that they love. They're in there, but also their NowComments are linked to it. That'd be cool.
Almost like a commenting feature where they annotate the poems that they're reading, but they're doing the annotations on NowComment collectively, collaboratively.
Right.
So Chris has gone pretty far. Could you describe what you did with the 7 sources and how that worked?
Yeah. So I'm talking about inquiry writing. It's, you know, it's nonfiction based. You know, it's nonfiction writing, and they're writing about their passions, something that you're interested in. And so in the past, when I would see their online writing, like on Youth Voices, I would sometimes wonder, you know, if you require them to use sources, sometimes I would wonder how they thought about this source to put it in their writing. Like, how did that actually happen? I can see that they cited it, and that maybe they'll pull a quote from it, but beyond that, I'd have to maybe talk to them and try to make the link there. So in NowComment, you know, if they paste those sources there and they annotate those sources and maybe even have conversations with their classmates about those sources, to me, when I read their stuff on Youth Voices, I was able to say, like, oh, that's where that came from, this piece of this source. And then I was able to look at their source. For example, things like this, I'd say, well, a real common problem in that kind of writing is students don't include examples to back up their claims. You know, where's the evidence for it? Sometimes the evidence was actually in the source. They just didn't read it carefully enough or didn't read far enough. And so I could, you know, we could pull up the source and I could see, hey, so some of my comments in NowComment, I guess if you'd look at some of those things, they would be like, hey, you know, you should include paragraph 32 in your argument because it seems like that would really back up your claim. You know, things like that. So to see their thinking about a piece of writing helped me understand the piece of writing itself. And I know I used to do that on paper, you know, like we can annotate things with pencil and everything, but it just made it a little more efficient for me to see it and their classmates to see it and talk about it. So that's how I use, you know, Youth Voices as the place to document my ongoing thinking about this inquiry, but that they linked to their NowComment annotations in their Youth Voices posts. So I use those two things together. And so that right there is a big ask for my students. Like, that's 2 different things that I'm asking them, 2 different platforms to work on. And so like, that's my hesitance sometimes with LRNG, just to be honest, is I have to scaffold that because it's like, hey guys, now here's LRNG.org. And so I have to be really careful. It's taken me all year, I think, to get them to the point where they see the difference between, oh, Youth Voices is a place for publishing and conversation. NowComment is a place to annotate the kinds of things that I read and have conversations about them. Mm-hmm. So conversations happen in both things, but I see NowComment as the place that exposes kind of their thinking about their reading that appears in their writing on Youth Voices.
So NowComment almost as formative assessment, and the piece that gets published in Youth Voices, from their perspective, as something summative.
I think so. Even though I had them revise their last piece, I think still that they would treat it as summative with maybe some tweaks, in a revision.
And so I brought up, this is showing now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an example of what NowComment calls a blog. It's really just a collection of other things. So this student,
this is an interesting example. This is one where I actually did question like what exactly they were thinking when they wrote their piece on Youth Voices. So,
but what she did, let's just say what she did, Anna, right? Did it?
Yeah.
Anna put up 7 different articles and then pulled those articles into a blog called In Futuristic Society, right?
Actually, that's a group blog. So if you look at Anna has an article, but underneath her, the one just right underneath
I'll put one up.
There's other people who've added sources to this collection.
And then each of these go to, right.
There's a similar topic, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go here and you can kind of see what's going on. So Kiran, you could think about it, but I was thinking that your anthology might be a collection / blog of their favorite poems that they could then decide to invite. They can then invite or others to kind of look at also and have conversation. I don't know if you want to go there, but worth thinking about. Is the proposal at least clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How were you thinking they would put an anthology together? Or do you know yet?
This one thing that I want is the anthology. I was just thinking of a set of poems. So really the paper, a book kind of anthology. It doesn't, it is what I wish it could be like. I wish there was some kind of application where it would let you, it would turn you could turn a page. It would feel like you were turning a page. You could even see the page come down. Aesthetically simple. Poems on a poem on a page. You get to read it and enjoy it, and maybe click on.
So how much do you care about the annotation in it then? Because if you don't, then all right. So
I care a lot about the annotation, but I see that as happening on in a conversation in Youth Voices where the student is giving their take on a particular poem, saying why they like it, and then other people commenting back, oh, I see what you mean, but I don't get it. This reminds me of this poem.
So here's, right.
Part of the hesitation that I have is it so, I want for our work in the classroom to be intelligible and visible to colleagues. I want to be able to invite them in. I have a dream of having computers on every desk and 10 colleagues coming in, and also kids from the other class that happens to be doing poetry right now, coming in and they find a computer, they sit down in front of it, and what is there? It's a kid's portfolio. And while I'm sharing my vision, can you project this? Can I somehow, I have something on the screen, Kevin Young's, or maybe you can go to it, Paul.
Where do you have it?
KevinYoungPoetry.com.
It's all one word?
Yeah.
So
without the T.
Kevin Young, oh, without the P.
Tree.
Okay.
.org. Sorry.
You can share your own screen, but I'll get there. Okay. So one of
this simplicity.
Kevin, Kevin, Young, poetry.
I think it's .com. I don't know if it's .org.
Oh shoot, you're right. .com.
Okay. So here's the thing. What kind of gets exciting to me about there we go. Oh yeah, we've looked at this before. Yeah.
Yeah. So the simplicity and the beauty of it, and colleagues and other kids can see that the person has made something, and then they click on one of these 6 sections and they enter, in this case, a world of NowComment, and they can see all these people have been talking about the poem that this kid chose. That could be.
So the format's not exactly the same, but I think that I do think the portfolio does work in this way. It's not as beautiful. But so let me try to. I was there, but let me go back there. But one thing I'm kind of excited about is that we don't have to like create a playlist for this. We can kind of mess around with it, know what you're aiming for, and build toward it. Let me try to explain what I'm saying. Okay. So do you see this now? You did.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've been through this, Kiran, but just to think about it together with and Kevin, I hope you're connecting somewhat, trying to figure out where you fit in all this. But
yeah, taking notes.
Okay, great. Okay. So this is, I'm logged in as a student right now, right? Just worth knowing, I can go here as under my work, and I can drop and drag any work here that I want to. I can add links, I can add a little bit of text, right? But I can add images and files. And then all of that work gets sort of listed here, and then I can create a portfolio, right? And when I create a portfolio, I can create a poetry portfolio, right? And then there are these sections. And what I was thinking is that those would be your 6 sections now.
Yeah.
Right? And then youth can add work to these. Right? And maybe some of this work would be just work. Maybe some of them would be badges related to playlists. It could kind of be open in that way. Does that help anybody kind of see what these portfolios are?
Yeah.
Making some sense. So that's what I'd love to mess around with this as our vision, but it's not going to be that pretty. But I totally almost said exactly the same thing. I even want to go one step further and say it this way. In the school where I'm working at Pulse, I want the principal, who isn't that tech savvy but loves the work, to be able to explain the work to her superintendent, right?
Exactly.
And if she can't do that, then we're kind of missing something. So that's a funny audience and goal, but yeah, I think is that similar to what you were saying?
Yeah. Oh, and to have other kids say, How come we didn't get to make that? Or, sure, I'll send you my portfolio.
So let me quickly, is my doc on the screen now? Yeah.
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 So, Chris, you said this, but I want to kind of put an emphasis on it. Just to say that when our kids come in, Jessica, and this is our quick outline, when they come in and sit down, they open up their Google Doc, which we talk to them is their notebook. They open up Youth Voices, they open up NowComment, and they open up LRNG, right? So they have those 4 tabs open. It happens within 30 seconds, we hope. Anyway, that's a kind of procedure, but here's why. We explained that Docs is your notebook, but it's not just a notebook, it's a notebook that other people can have conversation with you on. And it's that conversation piece. We've said this before, but worth emphasizing, right? Youth Voices is where you're going to publish work. But again, it's not just publishing, it's also interacting. It's also connecting with other youth around the country. It's about the conversation piece. NowComment is where you're going to get video, images, texts. In this case, we're going to read To Kill a Mockingbird on NowComment. And it's not just about putting your thoughts there, but it makes those thoughts public, and other people will reply to you, and you'll reply to each other. And then what I get excited about LRNG is it's not just where you're going to get your curriculum. You're going to build a portfolio that is used to have a conversation with a panel about your work, right? So that publish and conversation on all 4 of those is making a lot of sense to me. Any thoughts about that? Does that clarify, or does it feel overwhelming, or whatever?
I think the part that I'm still confused by is the utility of LRNG not only as a place where the portfolio is collected from student work, but also how playlists play into that. So they're kind of, my understanding, seem to be kind of hyperlinked sections of what's going on in the portfolio. Am I understanding that right?
Say what you mean by hyperlink.
I just mean, like, basically I'm still trying to wrap my head around how the playlist function and the portfolio function are different. So the portfolio, I understand now, is this, sequential kind of series of student work that are building towards their, understanding what their work is building as a portfolio sequence. But the playlists seem to be where they do inquiry within that sequence, but they do so kind of branching off of segments of the portfolio through playlists. Am I right?
I'm as confused as you are. Let's put.
I think, just to reiterate my question, what is the difference between a playlist and a portfolio? I understand what the portfolio is now. But
okay, so maybe this will help. When a youth comes in, the first thing, there are 4 tabs at the top, right? We teach them to use the dashboard, right? So the first thing we want them to do is write a bio. So we help them find this, write and record 3 true paragraphs about you. They bookmark it. Next time they come in the classroom, it's here under saved. Then they can be working on that playlist. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
As a playlist. And this playlist does end in a badge, right?
Yeah.
Here. We have only just begun thinking, but you may notice I'm a little excited about it. But I'm excited about thinking ahead of time how they're going to include that badge and the work from that badge in a portfolio.
Okay.
That goes beyond the playlist. There might be like 4 playlists in the portfolio.
Or there could be pieces of more than one playlist that I want to put in the portfolio, right?
That's right. You could just put work in. Yeah.
So I think of the playlist as kind of like the one thing, isn't it kind of the description and models of the task, the various tasks,
Okay.
And then the portfolio is where I'm collecting my artifacts.
Okay.
Yeah. Might be worth looking at, just quickly looking at this, another portfolio. This is an identity project that Jada did, right? So this was the one playlist she worked on. This was a second playlist she worked on, right? Each of these have a badge attached to them.
Wait, the one, so there's a badge and then there's a blue My Life post.
Yeah, so she pulled out, she said, here's one thing I really want to emphasize. If you click on the badge, you can see everything she did.
Uh-huh.
But it takes like 6 clicks in. But here she said, you know, here's the one thing I want you to look at. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is the 6 things you were referring to. This could be 1, this could be 2, 3, 4, 5, you know. She's working on her Where I'm From poem, she's working on Take Action. So these are sort of where she's projecting toward. But again, designing these things isn't what it's all about. Designing them with an audience in mind, I feel like we want to keep emphasizing.
You know what's,
yeah.
The audience I have in mind, and I think my students, is actually our local audience inside our school, inside the classroom and inside the 9th and 10th, the rest of the 9th and 10th grade.
Peers,
my
yeah.
audience, well, yeah, it's building ourselves as a school and making their work visible so that they're developing a niche, something they're known for among the 270 students that we have in our 9th and 10th grade. So the reaching distant places, it's so exciting on Youth Voices when they say, hey, somebody replied to my thing, somebody read my thing. That's exciting, but how there's this tension between leaning into an audience across the world when the audience you really care about is right next to you.
Anybody want to, any thoughts about that? I mean, I think you're saying it's not either or.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let me I keep bringing this up, but let me complicate it by this. So what we've started to think about is how badges might look a little different. So instead of there being 4 To Kill a Mockingbird badges, right? What we're and this was really about how Dr. Wiggins, the principal, can talk to her. I mean, it solves one of those problems. Can talk to her superintendent about, look, my kids are doing reading and annotating. They're doing readers theater. They're doing literary essays. They're doing related readings to the novel or to the screenplay.
Close reading.
Right, right. So that for each of the 4 sections of the screenplay that they're reading, right, they're going to be annotating this section. They're going to be doing some readers theater on that section. They're going to post on Youth Voices about it. And they're going to do some related reading about it, right, and having conversations. And then each of these things then becomes a section in their portfolio. And what I'm thinking is that these can also become different kinds of badges than those project badges, right? So there can be a reading badge, right? And then these boxes become the XPs. But And so, Kiran, your 6 things, I think, are similar to these 6 things.
Yeah, very similar.
Right? So, any feedback on this? Does this is this making sense?
Yeah, I like that it goes horizontal and vertical.
Uh-huh.
You
What
know,
do you mean by that, though? Yeah.
Well, you could have a reader's theater badge, right? Like you've just nailed it, and you're so into podcasting or whatever that you have excelled in this thing, whereas maybe that student really doesn't quite get a badge in the other things going vertical on each of those things, in each of the columns, I mean. Right, so that I could excel in literary essays because I just have an analytical mind and that's what I want to do. But I may not excel in all 4 things by February 15th.
What might be interesting is to pose to students that they attempt to earn a badge across the columns so that you're actually challenging yourself with, maybe one section, maybe pages 28 to 45 is where I'm going to really focus on my reader's theater badge. And then when it comes later, like 67 to 82 is where I'm going to focus on my essay. Whatever that might be, is it allows them to challenge themselves to differentiate, especially if those tasks are very differentiated in terms of skills.
Yeah, it's almost like a bingo card when you think about it. Like you could win horizontally, vertically, or diagonally.
You got to spell out bingo, though. Kevin, can I bring you back in for a second? Do you think that setting something up like this for Mouse makes sense? Because you guys are doing related readings around propaganda, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it might work well because one of the smaller projects that we were thinking of doing was like literature circles, but again, I could see how that has multiple components and some of them could be in line like this is. Where there's a go to NowComment and use and annotate the pictures in the chapter, and there's something else for find secondary or primary source about World War II or the Holocaust or Hitler and paste it into NowComment, and with an eye towards using that as like a source in the Youth Voices posting that's going to come at the end. Like I could see how some of these things might fit together like that.
I have a question about this is kind of taking a 10,000-foot view of portfolios in general. One of the things that my school's curriculum is focused on is project-based learning. So we end our inquiry into whatever we might be reading, for example, usually with a students directing a project of their own. And because they're artists in training, they tend to create projects that use their arts, whether that's choreographing a dance or whatever. In what way could that be captured in the portfolio? I'm thinking, of course, making an archival videotape or something like that, but where would they put the recording or that in terms of a one of the, whether it's LRNG or NowComment or Youth Voices, where would that fit in as a placeholder for the projects?
I would think, like, let's say dance, for example, because I just had a student who choreographed a piece and was really happy that someone had recorded it. And so, it lives...
Cut off for a second. Could you repeat that? You had a student who...
did a dance. She choreographed a dance and performed it at an assembly, and we videotaped it, and she was so happy to have it. Now, I'm not using this as a portfolio, but she has that on YouTube. So it seems to me that I could embed a YouTube video either in NowComment or Youth Voices, and I could have a discussion about what I was trying to accomplish here. And then that seems to me to be a viable piece to put into a LRNG portfolio. I mean, that when you mentioned the dance thing, it just reminded me of this other student. And for them to have to explain what they were trying to accomplish, what was their vision? Did they accomplish it?
Artist statement.
Yeah, so like there's the embedded video, and then there's like a discussion about it, writing about it, and then some discussion from other students. Seems like a way that makes sense to me.
So NowComment, they would be able to put in the link to the video and do their writing, their rationale or whatever it is beneath it. And then
in both places, they could actually do that. I mean, different things have different affordances, but you could embed a video in Youth Voices, or you could embed the video in NowComment and, you know, do the annotations on the video itself.
Okay. Okay.
I would say Youth Voices is the place to celebrate and promote and get the, you know, get it out there. And NowComment is the place where you'd want to get more feedback as you're making something.
Okay. So
because you can stop the video and make comments every 30 seconds, you know, and say, you know, I love this step, but this step, I wonder what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, like Chris said, the different affordances, but yeah. But again, worth saying that what we're all about always, I think, is a tool where kids get themselves out there, but also have conversation with other people. That if we can get them to understand that all these tools do that, that's key, I think. And we have to teach LRNG and try to get some examples on LRNG of portfolios that actually do that, where there's conversation happening around those portfolios and not just sort of submitting stuff and getting a badge, like big deal, right? So, yeah.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
How does a student attain a badge? Do they make that assessment themselves, or is there teacher input for that?
They submit. So currently, I don't know how it's going to work around portfolios, right?
Oh, okay.
But currently, you finish a playlist, and at the end of that, you submit, and then a team of evaluators and/or your teacher looks at that work and approves it. Or gives you feedback and says, you know, you need to work on this. Right.
So they unsubmit and resubmit when they have revisions and things like that.
Yep. If there's revision needed,
okay.
They have to add something to what they've put there. Yep. Well, thank you for helping us think this through. Anyway, anybody have any thoughts here at the end?
I think I'm feeling clearer about the way to use Youth Voices and NowComment, but I think I'm still murky about LRNG. But I'm sure I think it's best to go sequentially and just start with Youth Voices and work forward.
Yeah, getting up in Youth Voices is what it's all about. Yes.
Yeah, and I would say an easy entry point for Youth Voices is having students comment on other students first, instead of maybe thinking like, oh, here's this big thing that I'm going to put out there.
Yeah, so starting with Youth Voices, they're getting themselves out there. They get responses, comments, and then doing some close reading using NowComment, and then making a short post in Youth Voices out of a couple of the comments that you made.
It sounded really complicated, gotta say.
It sounds complicated.
Yeah, and I think we need to keep it simple for you and your students.
Yeah.
So even the anthology piece, finding a poem I love, and putting that poem on Youth Voices and saying this is why I love that poem.
Yeah,
is a great thing to do. And then then you're reinforcing their use of Youth Voices. So that's fine to do. But with the portfolio in mind, they can then put that link in that section of the anthology, right? That
Which link? Link to what?
The link to their post on Youth Voices.
Yes, that's great.
So, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, use Youth Voices to collect the work, and then we can just pull it all together in links.
That sounds great. And then they'll have the portfolio in the LRNG.
Right.
At the end. This is what you're going to make. It's kind of
you'll decide when you want to introduce that. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. The I want to check real fast, a little housekeeping. You need to send me student names and the IDs and stuff. And Kevin, do you have the same students as last semester?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all set. Cool. And Chris, you have the same semester kids, right? You don't change semesters. Okay, cool.
Paul, I'll be in touch with you as they log in and as we try to kind of navigate our first days. And
it's 5 degrees, so I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. So I'm here. That's what, when you're retired, you get to choose to do that. All right. Thank you so much. Sarah, would love to get your feedback sometime. But join us anytime. We're here every Wednesday night.
All right. This is for high school students. How do you feel about 8th grade?
8th grade's cool. It does get a little dicey younger than 13.
Right. My daughter teaches 8th grade, and I'm going to send her links to all of this. So
yeah, 8th grade's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. No, I think it's very exciting. I think that expanding the student audience beyond just their teacher is enormously exciting. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Talk to you all soon.
All right. Night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.